Have you ever left a conversation feeling drained, small, or strangely guilty, but couldn't quite explain why? After 70, every moment of peace matters, yet some people, often close to us, quietly chip away at our happiness. This video reveals 5 types of toxic people seniors must avoid, not just to protect mental health, but to reclaim the dignity and joy that life after 70 truly deserves. You'll learn how to spot them, how they affect your well-being, and how to gently but firmly protect your emotional space. And don't miss toxic type number 5. It's the I. One many older adults have silently tolerated for decades, mistaking it for love or duty, because peace isn't a luxury after 70, it's a right. Toxic person, number 1, the constant critic. Do you ever feel like no matter what you do, it's never quite right in someone's eyes? Maybe it's a son who comments on your bad choices, or an old friend who always seems to find fault. Your clothes, your memory, even how you walk. This kind of toxic person hides behind the mask of caring, but their constant criticism slowly chips away at your confidence and joy. After 70, you deserve encouragement, not a running commentary on your imperfections. Constant critics are emotionally exhausting. Their negativity lingers in your mind long after the conversation ends. Let's look at what makes them so harmful and what you can do to protect your peace. According to the American Psychological Association, repeated negative feedback, even when disguised as help, can have serious effects on self-esteem, especially in older adults. The Mayo Clinic warns that constant criticism, especially from close family, can increase feelings of loneliness, anxiety, and even trigger depressive symptoms in seniors. Signs of a constant critic include they rarely praise but always point out your mistakes. They say things like, "You're too forgetful," "You shouldn't eat that," or "You used to be better at this." Their comments often sound like advice, but leave you feeling judged or small. This emotional erosion is subtle, but real. The critic doesn't always shout. Sometimes they just sigh or raise an eyebrow, and still make you question yourself. After 70, you're not here to meet someone else's impossible standards. You're here to live freely and fully, not under a microscope. Let me tell you about Helen, 74, who moved in with her daughter's family after a fall. At first, it seemed like a blessing, but soon, every meal turned into a lesson. You're putting too much salt again. You forgot. Your pills? Again? You should really try harder, Mom. Helen started speaking less, smiling less. She began to doubt her own memory and worth. She wasn't in physical danger, but emotionally, she was fading. What looked like care was really control and criticism. If you recognize someone like this in your life, it's time to set gentle but clear boundaries. You might say, "I appreciate your concern, but I'd rather focus on what's going well today," or simply step away from conversations that leave you feeling worse. Also, write things down. When a person constantly criticizes you, journaling your thoughts helps rebuild clarity and self-trust. You can also talk to a counselor or a trusted friend, not for validation, but to remind yourself that you are enough, exactly as you are. But what about the person who drains your energy with endless complaints and negativity, yet never seems to change? That's the next toxic type, and many older adults call them friends, even when the friendship feels more like a burden. Toxic person number 2, the energy vampire. Have you ever hung up the phone and felt completely drained or left a visit feeling like you've just run a marathon? Even though you barely spoke, you may be dealing with an energy vampire. These people don't yell or insult. They simply consume your time, your patience, and your emotional space with constant drama, complaining, or self-centered stories. They rarely ask how you are, and if they do, they don't wait for an answer. For seniors, especially after 70, emotional energy is precious. It fuels peace, creativity, and health. Spending it all on someone who never gives back? That's a toxic exchange. According to Harvard, health, emotional exhaustion in older adults can lead to cognitive fog, sleep disturbances, and even weakened immune response. Energy vampires often show these traits. They only talk about themselves, their problems, or their latest complaint. Every story is dramatic, but nothing ever really changes. They often ignore your feelings, cut you off, or use guilt to keep you engaged. This isn't the same as a friend going through a hard time. It's a pattern of emotional take without give. The AARP emphasizes that seniors should protect their emotional bandwidth. Constant exposure to negative, draining conversations can amplify feelings of hopelessness or resentment and take away from relationships that truly nourish you. George, 78, had a longtime neighbor named Bill. They'd known each other for years, but lately every call from Bill started the same way. "My back's worse. My kids don't call. The world's falling apart." At first, George listened kindly, but after months of the same story, he noticed something. He dreaded the phone ringing. His heart would sink, his sleep got worse, and he started skipping his morning walks. It wasn't that George didn't care, it's that he was running on empty. To protect yourself, try limiting time with the energy vampire. You can say, "I care about you, but I can't take on all this right now." Or, "Let's talk about something lighter. I need a break from heavy topics." Set time boundaries. Only take their call when you're rested. End conversations kindly but firmly when they drag on. You can also redirect the topic or suggest they talk to a professional. You're not rejecting them. You're preserving your peace. But what if the toxic person isn't loud or dramatic? Just quietly makes you doubt yourself, one comment at a time. That's the next toxic type, and they're often the hardest to spot, especially when they come disguised as helpers. Toxic person number 3. The subtle manipulator. Have you ever agreed to something and later wondered, "Why did I say yes?" or felt guilty for setting a boundary, even though you knew it was right? You may be dealing with a subtle manipulator, the type of toxic person who doesn't control you outright, but makes you feel selfish when you don't do what they want. These individuals are masters of guilt trips, passive-aggressive remarks, and emotional pressure. They often smile, offer to help, or claim they only want what's best. But under the surface, they're twisting the moment to serve their needs, not yours. After 70, your time and decisions should be honored, not hijacked by hidden guilt. According to Psychology Today, subtle manipulation often involves tactics like guilt tripping. "After all I've done for you." Gaslighting. "You're just being too sensitive." Emotional bribery. "If you loved me, you'd..." This behavior is toxic because it slowly erodes confidence and self-trust, especially in older adults who've spent decades caring for others. The World Health Organization notes that emotional manipulation in seniors is often underreported because it's done by people close to them like adult children, caregivers, or old friends. It may look like love, but it feels like confusion. You second-guess yourself. You hesitate to speak up. You carry guilt that isn't yours to bear. Manipulators don't take control. They make you hand it over, quietly. Maria, 76, lived alone and was still very independent. Her niece Sandra began stopping by often, helping with groceries, checking in. At first it felt sweet. Then came the comments. "I canceled my weekend plans for you. I guess I'm the only one who cares." I hope you remember who's always been here. Maria started feeling anxious, afraid to say no, afraid to disappoint. She gave Sandra money she didn't want to give, changed her schedule, and stopped expressing her needs. One day she realized, this isn't kindness. It's control wearing kindness as a mask. To deal with subtle manipulators, start by naming what's happening, even just to yourself. When you feel guilted or pressured, pause and ask, "Is this my true choice? Or am I being emotionally pushed?" Practice saying, "I need to think about that. That doesn't work for me right now. I appreciate the help, but I make my own decisions." Also, talk to a third party, someone objective, to help you reclaim perspective. Most importantly, don't confuse manipulation with love. Real love respects your voice, your limits, and your freedom. But what if the toxic person isn't family or a friend, but someone you trust with your daily care? The next toxic type is especially dangerous because they often hold power over your health, routine, and even finances. Toxic person number 4, the abusive caregiver. What happens when the person you rely on the most is the one who makes you feel unsafe? For many seniors, especially those over 70, a caregiver is a lifeline, someone who helps with meals, medication, daily routines. But sometimes, that lifeline becomes a leash. The abusive caregiver is one of the most dangerous toxic types because their power goes beyond emotional influence. They may control what you eat, when you sleep, even whether you get to leave the house. And worse, the abuse is often hidden behind a smile or dismissed as just a bad day. But the signs are real, and no one at any age deserves to live in fear or silence. According to the National Center on Elder Abuse, nearly 1 in 10 older adults experience some form of abuse, and caregivers, family or hired, are among the 5 most common perpetrators. Abuse can be verbal, yelling threats, constant blame, emotional, isolation, humiliation, manipulation, physical or neglectful, withholding medication, rough handling, ignoring basic needs, financial, stealing money, pressuring for access to accounts. Many victims don't report the abuse because they feel dependent, ashamed, or fear retaliation. The World Health Organization emphasizes that elder abuse is linked to serious long-term effects including depression, trauma, premature decline, and in some cases, early death. Remember, needing help does not mean you lose the right to dignity. Walter, 82, lived with his adult grandson, Jake. Jake helped with errands, but slowly took over everything. He managed Walter's money, answered his phone, controlled who could visit. If Walter forgot something, Jake snapped, "You're lucky I even help you. I don't have time for this old man stuff." When Walter tried to speak up, Jake would slam doors or leave him alone for hours. He never hit Walter, but his words and control cut deep. Walter felt trapped, embarrassed, until one day during a doctor visit, he finally whispered, "I'm not okay." That moment changed everything. If you suspect your caregiver, even a family member, is being abusive, you are not alone, and you are not powerless. Tell someone outside the home, a doctor, a trusted friend, a local agency. Use phrases like, "I don't feel safe. I need help with something private." In the U.S., you can call the Elder Abuse Hotline, 1-800-677-1116, or contact Adult Protective Services in your area. Also, document any incidents. Write down what happened, when, and how it made you feel. Most importantly, believe yourself. Abuse isn't always bruises. Sometimes it's silence, shame, and fear. But you deserve better. Always. But what if the toxic person doesn't yell, control, or manipulate? What if they're just always negative, making you feel hopeless, small, or like joy is no longer meant for you? That's the 5th and final toxic type, and perhaps the most emotionally contagious of all. Toxic person number 5, the chronic negativity carrier. Do you know someone who always finds something wrong, no matter how good the day is? You share good news and they say, "Don't get your hopes up." You talk about trying something new and they answer, "At your age? Why bother?" This is the chronic negativity carrier, a toxic type who doesn't yell, threaten, or control, but slowly drains your joy, optimism, and self-worth. Especially after 70, when your time and energy are more precious than ever, being around constant negativity can dim your inner light. The danger? You may not notice it at first, but over time, their hopelessness becomes your silence, and their fear becomes your prison. According to Harvard Health Publishing, emotional environments, especially in close relationships, deeply affect brain health and emotional stability in seniors. Negative people often use phrases that dismiss your growth. "You're too old for that." Feed fear. "The world's just getting worse." Undermine hope. "Nothing will change, so why try?" These statements may seem harmless, even caring, but repeated over time, they can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, and even depression. The Mayo Clinic reports that exposure to persistent negativity can raise blood pressure, disrupt sleep, and weaken immune function, especially in older adults, who are already navigating physical and emotional changes. And when you hear discouragement every day, you may start believing it. But remember, just because someone else has given up on life doesn't mean you have to. Elaine, 79, had a close friend named Ruth. They met every week for coffee. But after each visit, Elaine noticed she felt heavy, discouraged. Ruth always complained, "Doctors don't care anymore. There's nothing to look forward to. We're just waiting to die." At first, Elaine tried to cheer her up. But over time, Ruth's outlook started affecting Elaine's mood. She skipped walks, stopped painting, and even canceled family outings, just to avoid more bad news. One morning, Elaine looked in the mirror and said to herself, "This isn't who I am." That day, she chose a new walking group and began protecting her peace. You don't have to cut off negative people completely, but you do need to protect your emotional space. Try gently redirecting conversations. "I understand, but I'd rather talk about something hopeful." That may be true, but today I'm focusing on what's good. Limit the time you spend with people who drain you. Instead, seek out those who lift your spirit, even in small ways. A neighbor who smiles, a grandchild who shares joy, a hobby, group with positive energy. Most importantly, surround yourself with voices that remind you life isn't over, it's evolving. So now you know all 5 toxic types. But what do you do next? How do you begin healing, setting boundaries, and building a peaceful, joyful life, no matter what your past has looked like? Let's wrap this up with hope, clarity, and a powerful message for your next chapter. Final words. Your peace is not selfish. It's sacred. You've just taken a powerful step. You've looked honestly at the toxic forces that may be stealing your peace, not with anger, but with awareness. Let's be clear. Avoiding toxic people is not selfish. It's not cruel, and it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that after decades of giving, loving, sacrificing, you finally choose to protect your energy, to honor your boundaries, to live the years ahead with dignity, joy, and peace. Maybe it's your adult child who never respects your opinions. Maybe it's a friend who always pulls you into gossip and gloom. Maybe it's even a caregiver who speaks kindly in public, but makes you feel small when no one's watching. You are allowed to say, "Enough." You are allowed to choose silence over shouting, peace over pressure, love, starting with yourself. So what now? Comment below. Have you ever dealt with someone like this? Your story might help someone else feel less alone. And if this video spoke to your heart, please like, share, and subscribe, so more seniors like you can reclaim their calm and confidence. And remember, you've lived for others for over 70 years. Now is the time to live for you. Don't let anyone, not a friend, not family, not fear, steal the peace you've earned. You deserve to wake up each day with lightness in your heart, freedom in your breath, and joy in your soul. This chapter is yours. Make it peaceful. Make it powerful. Make it yours.